afternoon, good evening, whatever it might be for you. It's 4 p.m. in the UK. It'd be nice if it was 4 p.m. here. Sadly, it's only 11 a.m. here. But, good morning. I decided to come back because I was a little ill about yesterday. And because, remember yesterday we were talking about building this Tenant Deleter. Well, the guy who needed it was like, hey, I need you to, I still need to delete this tenant. So, everything you were talking about is great and all, but, I still need to get this done. So, I went back to go visit some other, some old stuff. And, took a look at it last night. There's still some weirdness. And, I'm not entirely sure what's going on, but for whatever reason, I try to run this thing and it just works fine in my tenant. Of course, works on my machine, right? But as soon as we get to these super, super large tenants, it's like it bombs after the first 999, right? Page size and graph. 999 is the largest page size you can choose. The only difference between the tenants, the only difference outside of the tenants between me and this other person is that I'm using OS X. So I've pulled out this trusty Windows laptop. And we're going to see if I can replicate at least his problem on there. So I figured since we were all sort of invested in this yesterday, at least I was. I don't know if the rest of you were, but I was. I figured, well, why not let's get together and let's make it happen again. So that's what we're going to jump into for a little bit. The PowerShell provider thing, though, still a hot topic. I'm going to work on that today, I think. If I can get this Tenant Deleter nailed down, then I'm definitely going to work on that today because I think that's so much neater than the Tenant Deleter. Okay, so IGEL with AVD. Oh, what is this? That is cool. So Trooper says we should check out the IGEL. Is that IGEL or is it iGel? Which one should it be? Which one? How should I be saying it? iGel, IGEL. Let's see. Oh, I see. Oh, hang on. Let me get my stuff up here. Windows to go. All right, hold up. Let me get my thing here. And what we'll do is I'll show you what we're all looking at. So let's see here. We get logged in, and then you guys can see my screen. We'll start taking a look at it. So let's see here. Where is my screen? There's my screen. All right, let's go. Bam. Okay. So, Trooper says, there's something called iGel. So I and then gel, which, okay, so iGel, they make something called a UD Pocket, okay? So I'm going to go search for this right quick. Let me get my Windows here. Let's go take a look at what this iGel is, all right? So Azure Virtual Desktop and iGel, and so help me if I find out that I'm getting if this is some sort of subservient, if this is something that you're getting sponsored and I'm getting trolled by saying this, but I'm just kidding. Surely you guys wouldn't do that to us. And the other thing too, yesterday we were talking about ads. I went and looked at the ad thing, and apparently if you do pre-roll ad, you don't have ads during the thing, during your stream. But if you don't do pre-roll, you can skip a pre-roll if you do at least 90 seconds every 30 minutes or something like that. I don't know. So here's the thing. I guess the secret is I actually don't know how this sponsored money stuff ads work on Twitch. I do know that they're reporting to the IRS that they're giving me money. I don't actually have the money because our plan was to collect any sort of like the little tiny minor like ad money that came in. We're going to donate it through our Give program here at work. So that's going to still get donated. So, but nonetheless, okay, so let's take a look. Next Gen Edge OS for cloud workspaces. So essentially, oh, it looks like you're using an ad blocker. Some of the forms and images on this page may not work correctly with this enabled. That's kind of funny. So the UD Pocket, let's go look at that. UD Pocket. Let's see, where is that thing? Now, I don't know for the older folks on the stream. Oh, nice. Oh yeah, here it is. So it's a Linux-based micro endpoint. My goodness, that is small. It's been around for an age. Oh, but I guess now it works with AVD, so that's the difference. Nice. Now that would be kind of cool. So you just basically just plug this into whatever, right? Any USB bootable PC. You know, I remember, so years and years ago. Oh, cool. I will check that out, Trooper. Thanks for the heads up. That there is a there's a webinar on this, so we're gonna go check it out, and we'll check out the user group too. Sorry, that'd probably be a good. I think it'd be a good thing for us to do because AVD's really like getting big. You know, lots of people love AVD. I end up using it myself here at work quite a bit because, like, if I need to access something that's on CorpNet and I don't want to like VPN in and do all that silliness, I'll go use AVD because it's already there. And then there are certain things that like don't work on Mac at all, like pivot tables and Power BI, and so those are good things to use. That's what I use AVD for. Now, for the heads who've been here for a long time, years, and I mean years ago, I remember trying to figure this out. I don't even know. It might even be so old that I've removed it. It probably is. And I wrote an article specifically about how to do, how to basically boot from a VHD that's stored on a USB stick. So it was sort of pre-Windows to go, I guess, or maybe it was around the same time. But the point of it was, I would get these machines. Right, I got this machine from work. This is a place I worked years and years ago. And it's, you know, an i7 and it's got like tons of memory and it's got all this stuff, right? And then it's like, oh, here's a 5400 RPM hard drive. It'd take like 4 minutes to boot, you know. And granted, this was a long time ago. So I remember getting so annoyed. And so I would just buy another disk and I would clone the hard drive and put it in there. And so that way I could clone it to an SSD and then just stick the SSD in there. I don't have to worry about any of the sort of silliness of, you know, all the silliness that goes into, you know, reinstalling Windows and reactivating all that. Just clone it, bam, done. And but one of the things that was a problem was, of course, some of these things you couldn't do that. Yeah, so it wasn't a Cronus that I used. It was Re something. It started with a Re, with an RE. What was that thing called? But I remember it worked really well, and I was a big fan. I haven't used it in super long time because I don't do that a whole lot anymore. But it was really cool. And you know, so the other thing about AVD, Ghost. Oh man, I remember Ghost. In fact, so you know, we just moved. I think all of you know. I've mentioned it a few times here. So we just moved, and of course, as part of the move, all the junk in our basement got lifted up, and I found the old. It was like an old CD, like I don't even know what to call it. Remember Case Logic or Case Master or whatever it was called? It was like a zipper thing, right? No, it wasn't Rubric, Corey. It was let's see, hard disk imager, or I think it was like called a cloner. I mean, it's all the same stuff, right? Macrium. So Macrium Reflect. That was the one, right? So anyway, the case, what do they call it? Case Logic, Case Master, whatever, with the CD holders, DVD or CD holder, right? Macrium Reflect. I don't think that was for Mac. Probably wasn't. So like these things, you remember these things, right? and you'd put like a CD sleeve. That's what they're called. You put like your CDs in them. I understand I'm probably aging myself even calling them CDs. But anyway, point is, I found one of these when we were moving, and it has like the ghost boot CD. Because my first job was working for a small place where I was on help desk, and when I wasn't answering calls, I was imaging machines and moving them around or, whatever. And back then it was Ghost, and then it was like Norton Ghost, I think. Yeah, those are the days. It was a long time ago. Life was a lot easier then. I didn't have any like children or wife or like important jobs or anything like that. So yeah, the key was written on the disc. Absolutely, Callaway. It's really the only way to fly. Like, there's that one Windows XP key that like, it's like a volume license key that like everyone can remember, but it's like FW something, FY something. It's the one that everybody uses, like Windows XP key. And then people started making these like all-in-one things or whatever, where you'd get this disc and it's got like 19 flavors of Windows on the ISO itself. So it's pretty silly. Anyway, but yeah, so we found a bunch of old stuff like Windows Server 2000 and MSDN CDs. Okay, we're getting a little nostalgic here, but remember MSDN subscription? Remember the DVDs and CDs and discs you'd get that had like all the stuff in them? Like these things. The MSDN library that had like all the docs and stuff. Oh, those were the days, man. And the thing is, where I am now, bandwidth is occasionally hit or miss. So I might maybe we should fire this program back up, right? Like get some discs. So, oh yeah, I remember that. It was a long time ago. You can still download a lot of super old stuff in MSDN though, I found, which is kind of neat. Like things that you would really not expect to be able to download, you can definitely still go get. So I don't know if you don't have MSDN, talk to your people, because I have to say, like, I wouldn't say I get as much use out of it as I used to, but I'd definitely still get quite a bit of use out of it. So let's see, like you can still download like Windows XP, Windows Embedded. Like all sorts of old stuff. Like, what if you can still download like we did Fox Pro, I think, once. Remember we did Fox Pro on the show a year or two ago, and there it is, Fox Pro, Fox Pro 7, released 2001. 2001, I was 16 years old, and we can still go get it now. Is there anything that was released in the 90s, I wonder? 1999. Let's see. Look at that. The June 1999 edition of the MSDN Online Web Reference. With that sort of thing. 98? No. 97? Where you get remember stuff like Works, like Microsoft Works and all that sort of stuff? 1995? No, I guess maybe 1999 is as far back as we can go. But that's still the 19s, right? That's still a long time ago. That was 22 years ago. But Windows Server or SQL Server 2000. Do you remember I remember when SQL reporting services was like an add-on. It was an add-on on a disk. So it wasn't even part of the product. You had to install it. And I don't even know where the guy I worked with got it. He just had this disk of it. So SQL reporting services and RDLCs and ASP.NET. Oh man, this is like memory lane. You could essentially render SQL reporting services reports in app with no SQL. It's like, wait a minute. I think we may have given away the entire farm here. So yeah, I don't know. So if you don't have MSDN, you should go get it. I have no idea how much it is or anything like that anymore, but it's pretty cool. SQL reporting services is now I don't even know what it is now. I guess it's all related to, what is it? Power BI and Power BI embedded and standalone and all those things. Was it premium or something? Yeah, I didn't really quite understand all of the. I didn't really fully grip the like SQL reporting services, Power BI. Like, I mean, I understood the differences, but I don't fully grok the like the transition, I guess. So anyway, okay. So anyway, I hope all of you are going to have a great weekend. Hope you're having a good Friday. It's 4:15 in the UK, which means it's 5:15 in like what, Western Europe, or what is it, Central Europe summertime. So all of you should go get a beer or your beverage of choice and enjoy the afternoon. So anyway, oh yeah, the other thing, last thing. So I got my hair cut a little while ago. And you know, I just moved up here. I got a haircut. Like, and the lady was like, "Well, I'll do it short on the sides, and I'll do a little bit more on the top." And I was like, "Okay, whatever." Like, I have no idea what any of that means. She's like, "How about a 2?" I was like, okay. I'm like, 2 sounds fine because I don't know, because it's hair. I just don't care. Well, what I've realized is like now when I wake up, it's like it looks like Boomhauer. So I'm kind of not feeling this hair too much. Is, you know, it looks like this, and oops, Boomhauer looks like that. So just not really feeling it. So, oh, is it no longer called MSDN? What do you mean? What do you mean, Callaway? No longer called MSDN. Don't come around here with that. Oh, I guess it's not. It's called a Visual Studio subscription. Oh, okay. Well, whatever. But let's go try to buy one. So if you were to buy it for yourself, can you not even buy it for yourself? You can get Community, you can get Mac, which I think is just the other thing, and then purchase a Visual Studio subscription. Oh my, that's quite expensive. Wait a minute. So $1,200 for professional, $6,000 for enterprise, $2,169, which seems oddly specific, for test. What? And then Visual Studio Pro only, I guess, which is just Visual Studio, is. I guess, yeah. Can you do monthly? Surely you can do monthly, right? It's called a subscription, right? Yeah, action packs. I remember those. I remember the action packs from. When I worked for a partner. So that's interesting. And then I guess if you're a business, you got to go buy. Here we go. Yeah. I remember. I actually pitched this to my old consulting firm. I was like, why don't we just switch to this? Because it's like the prices weren't the same back then, but it's like it seems silly to spend like big money all the time. But and then enterprises call us for more, you know. So, ooh, it has GitHub now. That's cool. Anyway, whatever. It's kind of neat. Not full MSDN though. It's different. Interesting. Okay, so this is the Tenant Deleter. Okay, and we worked on this, very, very long time ago. Let me get the link up here to the code, right? And it's because deleting tenants is kind of annoying because you have to delete the things in the tenant first, right? So here's a link to the repo, which has been dormant for 14 months and has had a flurry of activity in the last 2 days. Now, one thing you may be asking yourself is, okay, so we want to delete some stuff. So we need a tenant that we can delete stuff of, where we can delete stuff, right? So let's get to, I've got a tenant that has a bunch of users in it. If I can find the browser that has that would be great. Here it is. Oh, it's right here. Okay. So let's get these other windows closed here. We'll zoom this in. So here's Graph Explorer, right? It's a normal Graph Explorer, as we all sort of know and love. And this is just a test tenant. So this test tenant, we're just going to do a user's whack count, just so we can see how many users are in this tenant right now. And that number is 27,960. That might be a little difficult to see. So we have 27,960 users in this tenant. Now, what I did yesterday wrote a really hyper basic PowerShell script to go load a bunch of users in here. So let's get over here to the portal. And I gave up yesterday and went ahead and used Edge. Weirdly, every time I would go to good call, Trooper. We should mention this. So there are, when you want to delete an Azure AD tenant, and not just leave one. So, of course, any individual can go leave a tenant. You can go to myapps.microsoft.com, and you'll have an organizations view, and you can leave any tenant that you're a member of. And people who have worked in consulting or in as a service provider or anything, or even just customers who have had like lots of Office or Azure stuff over the years, they'll go to sign into their account and they've got 39 tenants available to them, right? And as an individual, you can leave a tenant all day, no problem. But if you're doing test tenants, if you're building test stuff, if you're trying things out or you're automating certain things or whatever, or even just doing like demos or testing a specific scenario, you can go create a new tenant. You can create demo tenants and you can create, but an Azure AD tenant itself is free. Doesn't cost anything. And it's sort of divorced from Office and Azure and everything else, right? So it's a little bit of housekeeping. It's probably, I wouldn't say necessarily like a security thing. Although I suppose if you had something really old and you moved to a new, you moved over to a new tenant, or you got acquired or something, you wanted to get rid of the old one. There could be some reasons why you want to get rid of them. And of course, we want you to get rid of them because it costs money to run them. I mean, obviously, right? But there's no sort of concerted effort to say, oh, you should go turn this off or whatever. So the tenants themselves are, you may want to reclaim a domain, or maybe you want to delete it and use the domain name somewhere else. You want to remove your domains. You want to remove the users. Maybe you got a bunch of apps in there and you want to just dump the apps. Like maybe in some cases it's easier to delete the entire tenant than it is to keep it around for whatever reason. And as some things become more metered, you may have a cost associated with it. Say, I don't want this anymore, right? I don't want anybody being able to sign into this at all. So we're going to delete all the users, all the everything. Now you can't just go, keeping on top of things is really hard to do because there's just so much and there's so many different ways that you can turn things on and everything else that you don't want to keep things around if you don't have to. So if you as you start to dig into deleting it, you may think, oh, well, that's super easy. I'll just Control A, Shift Delete, and away we go. The problem is that when you try to do that, if we come to our tenant, you go to manage, we try to delete it. Now we have it says, oh, we're going to check to see if this can be deleted. Oh, we got a bunch of users. So you got to delete all your users. You got to delete all the apps, app registrations, service principals, any licenses, any Azure subscriptions, domain services, self-service sign-up of stuff like Power BI, Flow, those sorts of things. So if you got all these things all these things have to be deleted, right? And I think what Christos was referring to around like keeping things clean, like there's absolutely the Azure side to this business of I've got VMs or I've got disks or I've got storage and things, and those have meters on them that will they will cost you money, right? It's like that old joke about like I've been paying Amazon $3.12 or something for the past 10 years every month because there's an EC2 disk somewhere or an EBS disk and I just can't find it to get rid of it, right? So on the Azure side, absolutely. There are lots of reasons why you'd want to make sure your Azure subscriptions are deleted 100%, cleaned up, things out of it. And cost management in Azure is pretty good now. So there's a cost management portal for Azure resources for running VMs and app services and databases, all that sort of stuff. Azure AD is a little different because you don't really run. Oh yeah, backdoors and things for sure. Like leaving things running beyond the cost side, like leaving actual resources running beside the cost. Oh yeah, like VMs get old, they get out of date. They've got known exploitable known exploitable software on them. They're sitting out there on the internet. They got a public IP. Things are scanning these things all the time, right? Like you go spin up a new VM today in Azure, and go look at your SSH failed login log 10 minutes later, and these things just get hammered all day long. So definitely on the resource side, we don't want to keep any Azure resources any longer than we have to because it's an attack surface, and any attack surface is a bad surface. Azure AD side, there's a huge surface there. You can log in, you can get tokens, you can create apps, you can do all sorts of things. You may have completely forgotten about it, and maybe you don't have any data in there anymore. You've deleted most of your users, you don't have any Azure subscriptions, it was just a test thing anyway. But then, here's the other thing. Think about it like this. Like, let's say it's a dev thing, so you just created one, you used a password you used elsewhere. Bad hygiene, but we all do it, right? So you accidentally use the same password on some other site that got breached as your Azure AD dev tenant password or something, right? Well, the thing is, anybody can go to an Azure who is a user within an Azure AD tenant can go create an app registration. And when you can create an app registration, especially a multi-tenanted app registration, you can now create an app registration that you can present to users in any other tenant and start accessing their data in other tenants. So let's say we wanted to create a malicious, definitely not malicious app. And we did multi-tenant, right? And I'll just pick something like super basic for now. But like, let's say we did this, we'll register it. Now this says Contoso, but if I get access to this old directory that you don't care about, right? We can go to our directory, we can change the name, right? So let's see, let's go to like properties. We can change this. This could say, definitely Microsoft. I mean, because it's a typo, but like, is anybody going to catch the typo? Nope, right? This is definitely yourbank.com, right? So you can come in here and you can upload a photo, right? You can upload a picture, like in your tenant branding. You put a picture of a bank logo up there, right? And obviously there's lots of mitigation, lots of things that happen. But somebody who gets control of something, now they can do this. And this means when a consent screen happens, right? Let's go back to our app. This means that when we are in our malicious application, let's say we have some scopes. Let's add a scope that we want. We want to read the users, I don't know. We want to read the users, we'll say we want to read their mail. Because whatever, right? So let's say we want to read the user's mail. Maybe we want to read writes. We can send out spam and stuff too, right? So I'm going to do this, and now we've got an application, right? So let's go craft a login URL very quickly, right? So this application, for authentication, we're going to have to turn on implicit, which is kind of lame. But because we're using jwt.ms, we'll have to use that because it's all happening in the browser. Don't use implicit if you don't have to. So we've got we're going to go to jwt.ms just so we can go look at the token. But let's go create, I'm going to go craft a login URL right quick. So let's get our app ID, and I'm just going to make a new file in here just so it's easy to read. So we're going to go to login.microsoftonline.com whack common. Common being, this is what's called the common endpoint. This is the thing that lets this is multi-tenant, so anyone in any Azure AD tenant can log in here. And we're going to do, let's see if I remember correctly, OAuth 2 v2.0 authorize client ID equals our app ID our super malicious app ID that we just created. Let me zoom in a little bit so we can all see that. So we're going to go to authorize. We're going to have a client ID. And then we're going to have a scope. And our scope will ask for user.read. We're going to ask for mail.read. And we're going to ask for, let's ask for calendar.read, right? Oh, look. Thank you. Thank you, Copilot, for seeing it, what it is that we're trying to do. And we'll do offline access because this gives you a refresh token, right? So we've got that. So we got our scope, and then we've got our reply URL. And our reply URL, or it might be redirect URI. I can never remember. Redirect URI is jwt.ms. And we'll see, nonce, we'll just do a default nonce because we're malicious, so we don't care. And then our response type, we're going to get an ID token. So we're going to get both an ID token and a token. And I feel like I'm forgetting a parameter, but the best part is it's going to be really clear with this. We're going to find out very quickly if we forgot one of our things. So we're going to take this URL, right? Tell me what I forgot, because I know I forgot one of them. Let's go open up a private window, right? Paste this in here. Now it's going to ask me to sign in. So let's say I'm going to use one of my accounts that I've got, right? Just a normal account. Like this is just a normal sort of nothing fancy, just, you know, a test account that I use for different things, right? Now we're going to go here. Oops. If I can remember my password, that is. And then I need to turn passwordless on because now I believe you can have multiple passwordless apps in the same, or passwordless tenants in the same authenticator app, which is kind of neat. So I'm going to go here, right? Okay, sorry. So I guess maybe I had the wrong scope in here. So let's change that. Maybe it's not. Is it not calendar.read? Is it not called calendar.read? Maybe it's events.read. Well, I'd take the calendar one off. I don't really care. So let's take calendar.read off here. Okay. So now I'm going to sign in. I'm going to use my authenticator, get MFA'd because I've got old rules in there that basically make you MFA all the time, which is kind of annoying. This is why this is test in it, not one I use much anymore. And now I'm at a consent screen. Now, it says it's definitely not malicious, so we can definitely trust that. It says, hey, it might be risky, you know, but it's unverified, but getting a verified badge is super simple. I shouldn't say super simple. You have to go through lots of verification, but like it's saying that might be risky. Okay, but I'm like, whatever, man. I'm end user. Bam, accept. Let's go. And then, I forgot my OpenID scope. Of course, I knew I was forgetting one of them. OpenID percent 20. Bam. There we go. So now we've got us an ID token, right, for this user, and we could also go and get we also could get a token, like an access token, and now we can go read this user's mail. Now, no administrators were involved. People did now, and there are certain mitigations and things that happen. But so the thing is, you don't want your tenant to be taken over by somebody where they go create these malicious apps that anybody can go sign into. I mean, any one of you could go and sign into this right now, to this app right now with your Azure AD tenant. Now, for multi-tenanted apps that were created after last fall or last summer, sometime in the last few years, if you are not an administrator, you cannot consent to a multi-tenanted app that is not from a verified domain or not from a verified tenant, right? So there are lots of other sort of signals and things that they use internally to determine if apps are malicious. But at any rate, like somebody getting a hold of an old tenant of yours is dangerous stuff. It's not the kind of thing you'd want to do, right? So the person who asked me recently is just trying to delete an old tenant because it's got a ton of customer data in it. So they just want all the data out. This is a demo sort of thing. So anyway, yeah, short version. Don't leave demo tenants laying around because you never know when you're going to need one. So, okay. I wonder if I had done just token, that would probably have given us our access token, but whatever. And it would have given it to us in the thing, but okay. So, let's move into actually deleting these things, right? So, get this zoomed in a little bit here. Now, so this code is a little bit older, granted. So there's still maybe some things that we used to do that we don't necessarily do that much anymore, like wrap our own MSAL token providers around literally everything. But this is going to be a fairly privileged app because we're going to be deleting apps we're going to be deleting users. We're also going to be deleting apps and a bunch of other things. We're going to need some pretty privileged scopes here, like user read write all, which is, I mean, that's a decent amount of privilege, right? Like to be able to read and write every user in a directory is pretty significant. Now, one of the things is, I was looking at this yesterday. Now, this tenant in question, the one that the person I'm working with on, has over 3 million users. It's a lot of users. So I've got a tenant that's got the 26,000 or whatever. And when I was doing the deletions yesterday, we could get to about 6,500 per minute because there are two main things. First, your max page size in graph is 999. So we can only get 1,000-ish. We can only get 1,000 user IDs at a time. And then for each one of those user IDs, we've got to ping the delete endpoint for each one of those. So we got to basically say delete, like an HTTP delete method, right? And so in order to do that, we basically make those calls. Now, Graph also has a concept of batching, and the batching is super helpful because with batching, we can take up to 20 of those and submit them in one actual HTTP request, and then Graph will go and handle actually blowing that away. Now, the problem is access tokens are valid for an hour. It will take 3 million users. It will likely take a little bit more than an hour. So yesterday my thought was, well, we got to figure out some way to cache these tokens, right? So I started looking at token caching, and there's lots of cross-plat token caching stuff out there. And a lot of it's things like, for example, on a local machine, you might go write a file somewhere that has your token cache in it. Now, as we all heard recently, Teams had a file that it was keeping that had token caches and the like in it, and somebody found it and called that a security breach, and the internet got excited for 45 minutes about it. Part of me would say, if you are in an ACL, if your files are ACL'd appropriately on your machine, then it's sort of like, well, like if something's on your machine and it has access to files that only you have access to, certainly there are ways to encrypt and protect files, lots of data protection APIs and whatever. But I don't actually think it was worth all of the hullabaloo. The hullabaloo felt like it was much ado about nothing. But whatever, like security vulnerabilities now, you have to have a clever name, and it's a big, it's a big press thing. Whatever, I get it. Now, Keychains and Mac and OS X are pretty neat because the keychain can be application scope, so it's literally the app itself, the app and the user are the thing that can read that. They can read that, which is sweet. And the keyring in Linux is similar. So. And Windows has lots of data protection APIs too. Not to say Windows doesn't. I don't know exactly what it's called for Windows because there's maybe just because there's so many. There's like web credentials, there's key credentials, there's saved credentials. There are all sorts of different ways to save and store and protect data inside of Windows. But at the end of the day, right? Like if you've got some malicious code running on your box, it doesn't take much, right? If you've got malicious code running on your box, like you're kind of at that point, it's especially as a workstation, like servers and horizontal mobility and things, like totally understand, totally get it. But if you're an administrator, for example, on your local box, like there's some things that are just gonna be very difficult to mitigate. Anyway, So I started looking around, and I found some people at Microsoft in the identity org, much smarter folks than I, have written an MSAL extensions package, okay? And the MSAL extensions package has a cross-platform token cache, which is awesome. So we're gonna go take a look at that quickly. MSAL extensions, cross-platform token cache. Found this yesterday, and I was super, super pleased to have found it. Let's get this zoomed in a little bit. Let's see, blah, blah, blah. Where was it? This actually wasn't where I was yesterday. There was one, though, if I could find it. The cross-plat. Here we go. Desktop apps. Let's see here. Where is... here we go. Identity, client, extensions, MSAL. Okay. This is what I wanted. But of course, it's all open source too, which is great. So you can go out and take a look at the thing. So here's the wiki, and let's go take a look. So for the Linux keyring, all of the data you need to configure the keyring appropriately, right? For the Mac keychain, keyring in Linux, and for Mac, you've got your keychain. And then for Windows, you've got you've got your cache file name and your cache directory, right? And then you create your public client application just like you would otherwise, and then register up this cache. So pretty straightforward, pretty awesome, if you ask me, because I was not keen on having to go write yet another token cache, especially the local ones. Like I don't do a whole lot of local dev, like console apps, all that sort of stuff. So I'm not nearly as familiar with the concept of like persistent state. There's a friend of mine, a guy I worked with years and years ago. The first job I had actually when I was doing help desk, and they asked me if I wanted to write code, and they hired a consultant, this guy called Bob. And they made Bob and I share an office because our manager was a very good boss, but he was like, you're 19 years old and he's a consultant. Neither of you are getting your own offices. Like, okay. So he made us share an office. And most days Bob would come in, and Bob was probably about my age now, so like mid-30s. And Bob would come in and every day write on the whiteboard a topic or a concept, and he'd say like, go read about this, go learn about this thing, And it was a great help, like just having someone there, and somewhat of a just a safe environment to learn in. And then a few years later, I left and went to go work at a bank and whatever, and I got a call from Bob. He said, "Hey, you should come over and work with me at my new place." And I did. And I remember for the interview, he kind of did the same thing. He's like, I'm just going to write something on this. I'm just going to write something down that you should probably go and study before you do this interview. And this was 3 or 4 years later. So I was more comfortable writing software, but I wasn't really any good at it. And he said, you should make sure you really understand interfaces properly. I'm like, oh, okay. I got my head first C# books. I read about interfaces. Like, oh, and I don't know, it's like through the grace of whatever, like it all clicked as I'm in the parking lot about to go into the interview. And it was great because I had a 45-minute like coding exercise about implementing interfaces and creating a new implementation of an interface that accessed XML data in a different way. So it was kind of neat. And I actually don't know why I brought this up, but he was a good dude, and I don't remember at all why I brought that up. But at any rate, he's a super sharp dude, and he'd give me something to study every day, which I thought was really good. Yeah, me too. Yeah, sorry, Fuel. It's Friday. Anyway, so now I remember. Good habits. No, I remember he called me years and years and years later, and he told me, because most of what we had done, of course, to that point had been web dev. And I remember he told me, he said they do a lot of desktop software, like WinForms kind of stuff, like proper desktop software. And he's like, it's a whole new world. Like managing state and like, there's no concept of like recycling an app pool, and there's no concept of 25, 35, 45, 100, 1,000 people accessing these apps and these different sessions concurrently. Like it's this one thing. And he said, managing the state and sort of getting over the hurdle of understanding state, like state management, with these sort of stateful applications, he said it was like totally complete shift, big, like learning opportunity, which I thought was pretty cool. And I feel like I can appreciate that because desktop apps are just not a thing. And this is barely a desktop app. It's a console app, right? Okay, so anyway, cranking this up is pretty straightforward. Now, I didn't do Linux keyring because I wasn't really expecting anybody to need it, and I wanted to get this thing done quickly. I did use the Mac keychain because I'm on a Mac, and I thought, well, I don't want to have to re-authenticate literally every time I run this because it's stupid. So if we look at our code, we've got our Tenant Deleter. We're going to get the folder path of the user profile, right? Kind of because it's like, well, user profile is ACL to the user, and we should be able to store data there kind of without any big drama. The user should have write access to it. Shouldn't be writable from anybody else. Blah blah blah. Like I said, we didn't use Linux, but we did use Mac Keychain. Mac Keychain has got two things: the service name and the account name. And these are the two things these two are the things that essentially scope the keychain access to specific apps, right? There's some interesting stuff you can do with Keychain to share caches across applications, which is kind of neat. Sort of how like if you open up Edge Canary and Edge or Office something, both of them on Mac are like, oh, hey, do you want to add an account? I already see these other 3 accounts. Sort of same on your phone and stuff too, on like if you're using an iPhone or whatever. Anyway, so we've got a multi-tenant app reg that is pretty basic. It just does the user read write all. We're going to build this up. We're going to hook up our caches to this and register the cache. And all it's doing is, if you're not familiar with MSAL caching's the token cache itself is some fairly complex methods on it. So instead of completely implementing the cache, what you implement is sort of the last mile, meaning MSAL is going to give you some bytes, go store them. And MSAL is going to ask you for those bytes again in the future, go get them. So instead of you having to do all of the serialization and encrypting, decrypting of that, MSAL will do all of that for you, and you just have bytes. Like you just do that last mile of fetching and or storing some bytes downstream. Okay. Okay. So we got our cache helper here. All that looks good. We're doing some pretty basic stuff, getting an account, going to go get a token. If we don't have a token, we're going to go get one with the device code because it is cross-plat. Like we're not going to pop a browser or do any of that silliness. So we're going to do device code, and we're going to get our token. Pretty straightforward, right? This is all wrapped in a token provider, an authentication provider, which is part of Graph. Now, for those who are in the loop on this sort of stuff, Graph is actually shifting to not even, you can still do these, of course, but Graph is also now accepting Azure credentials. So like the Azure credential that's part of the Azure SDK, this token credentialed objects, just for the sake of consistency, cross SDK, you can actually use those now too. In this case, it's already here. I don't really want to mess with it too much if I don't have to, especially because we're signing into like explicitly different tenants than the ones that we're signed into, say, like the Azure SDK with. So I wouldn't necessarily want to, like, generally speaking, and this is an assumption, you can tell me if I'm wrong, generally speaking, I don't see many cases where you would want to delete the tenant for which you are currently signed into, like into Azure CLI or into your machine with. Generally, I would think those are production tenants, and these are going to be your dev tenants, etc. Could be wrong though. So, oh boy, a few cloud skills challenges, series on demand with Microsoft Reactor that cover Graph. So get an understanding, and then more advanced lessons. Tricky to get your head around it, but yes. So Graph is massive too. Like almost everything inside of Office you can get to through Graph. And so all the Azure AD stuff, your emails, your calendars, your devices, your device management, like tons and tons of stuff. So, Trooper, if you've got a link to that Cloud Skills Challenge, I'd like to see it because I've heard of those, but I don't know if I'm really super familiar with what they are. I think they're part of like Learn or Docs or something, but if you've got a link to it, I'd love to see one. So we take a look. So generally, this is a pretty simple authentication provider. So if we go look at our program, and again, this is super simple, right? It's just meant to go run locally. All we're really going to do is delete some users from the tenant, delete our applications, and delete our service principals. There are other things we can go and implement, but whatever. We've got a new deleter configuration object that just has a graph client because we don't want to create a new graph client for every single one of these requests because that's going to be a lot of overhead. Instead, we'll use a max page size of 999 because that's the most that we can request at any given in any single request, right? So in our deleter, we're going to add 2 more options. Yeah, you can post a link in the chat. That's cool. If it lets you, I don't know. I mean, I don't know like how all the things work, but if it lets you, then for sure, definitely. And if not, you can like ping me on Twitter, or you can send it to me in email, or on Discord. Actually, Discord. Oh, that's right. I'm supposed to advertise the Discord. How do I do that? Join us on Discord. Thank you. Thank you, BSD guy. Thank you, Trooper. I will go and look it up. Microsoft Cloud Skills Challenge, 30 days. Okay, I will go look that up. So we're going to do 2 things here for our graph queries. First one, we want a consistency level of eventual. This sort of is magic strings to unlock some newer filtering and sorting and grouping functionality inside a graph, particularly for Azure AD objects. So we're going to want this consistency level eventual, and then count equals true is also another magic string. Don't ask me why. That kind of does the same thing. Sort of indicates your intention to use the thing, right? Let's see. So we got a link. Let's go look at this link quickly. Let's see what's going on. So the 30 days Cloud Skills Challenge. M365 developer. It's a 22-hour and 30-minute challenge. That's oddly specific. You'll get skills in building apps with graph, identity, and extending Microsoft 365 and Teams. Interesting. 50% off a certification. That's cool. Let's see. 20% productivity increase. 58% career improvement, and 42% got more money. Now that's what's up. Also, there are all sorts of these little challenges. That's neat. So like, what do you just like, you just go to do the thing, right? And then, so you pick the stuff you want to, like, do you pick the stuff you want to learn? If I hit this, for example, what's this going to do? Oh, goodness gracious. No, thank you. Okay, I'll use my live account. Okay. Oh. Am I a Microsoft 365 developer? I mean, I don't want to, please don't send me newsletters. I don't want those. So this is a 22-hour, 30-minute challenge. Okay. I don't know what the official rules are, but does anybody actually read the official rules? Okay, so I'm going to start learning the official rules. Details. I guess I don't. Okay, so we don't live in any of these places. Okay. Okay, I mean, whatever. Looks fine. Okay. So this is cool. So you can go, so basically you get, I'm already 17% complete. I didn't even do anything yet. Actionable messages in Outlook. I bet that's really cool. Building apps for Teams. Extending SharePoint. Oh my God. I remember I did SharePoint dev for years. Office customization. Network traffic with graph. That's pretty neat. I don't know how you would do that. Okay, so these are like Learn modules. Neat. Okay, cool. I'm going to come back to this one because this looks pretty neat. Yeah, so I'm familiar with the Learn modules. I've never come across the Learn, like the challenge, the 30 days challenge thing. That's the part that's new. So that's cool. So it's essentially like a curated set of these. That's cool. I'm super curious. I don't even know what that means. Oh, throttling, which is exactly the thing that we're working on right now. Okay. So let's take a look. Okay. this is fairly straightforward. We're going to go make a graph query. We're going to make two. First, get our own ID because we don't want to delete ourselves because I don't actually know what would happen. I feel like there'd be some sort of a tear in a framework somewhere. So we want to find our own ID. We're going to get, in this case, we're going to get, give me all users. Our max page size is 999, as we said earlier, right? And then we're going to go and delete our entities. And our delete entities, I probably went a little overboard, but whatever. Delete entities is basically just going to take one of these pages, right? And then it's going to start rolling through them with this page iterator. So page iterator is a a graph. This is part of Graph SDK. This is a graph concept. And it's essentially just a page iterator. If you're not using the SDK and you're just doing this with like with raw REST calls, there's an OData next link in the response you can use. So all this is doing is going and getting it. We're going to create the deletion URL, and the deletion URL is just this delegate of give me the user's request URL, because to delete a user is just instead of a get on the user's ID or the user's the graph URL for that user, it's just a delete instead. It's an HTTP delete. So we're going to get the request URL, and we're going to add it to a batch. In fact, I remember some of you were on the stream when we were figuring out how to do batching, which was kind of fun. So we're gonna add it to the batch. Our max batch size is 20, and once we get 20 items in the batch, we're just gonna go post our batch and say get to it, go to work. And we reset our batch content so that we have a new container for our batches, and then away we go, right? So it's relatively straightforward, and this is gonna get called for every single one of the users in there. So we're gonna get 999. This is gonna run through, batch them into batches of 20, submit all those batches of 20, and then it's going to go fetch the next page of 999 users and essentially do the same thing. Now, in our test tenant, let me get a new thing here. If I can remember, I wish there was a hotkey for this. So here, let's go to our code. We've got our tenant deleter, right? Now, I've already got my tenant ID in here, so let's just do a .NET run, and we've got the thing. This is our tenant ID, right? That's just an argument we're passing in, and if we run this, oh, wait a minute. Not supported to build or publish a self-contained app without specifying a runtime identifier. Oh, for crying out loud. We should just take the self-contained off. Self-contained false. I wanted to make like just like a trimmed assembly, but I set self-contained to false. Or maybe it's -- no self-contained. Or maybe it's, oh, you know what it is? It's part of the .NET run. We should probably just take it out of our thing. Self-contained false, maybe? And if not, we'll just include the runtime identifier and away we go, whatever. Okay, now you'll notice it's asking, I'm sorry I can't zoom this in, you'll see it's asking that this app wants access to the keychain. So we're gonna do that. I'm gonna give it my password because this is where our token cache is stored. And I'm going to always allow it because I always want to let this app do it. And now it's going, right? Now, if we look at what it's doing down here, now, bear in mind, this kind of logging will likely slow down your execution, but whatever. But you see, 860, 900. Now watch, you're going to get a little bit of a pause at 999, but then it keeps on rolling, right? So it's running these batches. There are 27,960 that were in there, okay? This thing's getting close to 2,000 requests now that it's batched up into these 100 batches, right? Now we've hit 2,000, so that 999, you can see it go and get that extra page, right? You can see it go get this other page of results. So the problem that we're having is twofold. First, we're going to see that this is 4,000 requests, and that's where I'm going to stop it. So we're going to do 4,000 requests out of 2,960. I'm no mathematician, But 27,960 minus 3,996 is 23,964. 23,964. Is that right? 23,964 ish. If we were to go look at our Graph Explorer, or at our graph right now, and see how many users are left, because you remember we were doing that earlier, right? So 27,960. We just deleted 4,000. Supposedly that should be 23,960. However, it's 26,986. And some of that's the eventual consistency thing that's happening, right? Of there's so many nodes that have this data in there that the chances of us both querying this node and submitting our deletes to the same node, the chances of those being the same node are fairly slim, right? Because they're different operations and different things happen. And so over the next little bit, we'll say, that number will start to get down, right? But we are still queuing, like those batches are still queued. Now, according to our friend, he's trying to run this on Windows. And on Windows, it gets basically to the end of the first page and it blows up. There are two reasons for this. One, possibly, is that it's on Windows and something's different. And two, is there something specific about his tenant? So what I need to do is we got to figure out, is this a Windows thing or not? So let's get over to, this is a Windows machine that's actually sitting right here next to me. Oh, Edge has been updated. And I don't even know if there's get on here. So let's just go to Tenant Deleter. Let's just go to this in the thing here. All of you are, of course, welcome to... Oh, no, what have I done? I did not want to do that. All of you are welcome to go get this app and try to download it yourselves. The Tenant Deleter has a release. This was released last night. So here's our Win64 executable for this, right? So let's go download this. Of course, Smart Screen's going to be like, I don't know what this is. This isn't signed. I'm not letting you run this, right? Isn't commonly downloaded. That's fine. We're going to keep it. We're going to tell it we have to keep it. Yeah, keep it anyway, please. Looks like I already downloaded it anyway, so whatever. So let's get to this folder, and let's get our command line up, okay? And let's get this zoomed in a little bit here. Okay, so we got our command line, and we're just going to go run our little executable against the same tenant. So let's see, that would have been in downloads, and that was called Tenant Deleter. We'll just do that one. And then we're going to need a tenant ID. Let me go get a tenant ID here. Tenant ID. Here it is. Here's our tenant ID. Okay. So let's put our tenant ID in here. I'll tell you one thing about switching from Windows to Mac that's been the hardest for me has been Control V versus the Windows key V. Super, super, super annoying. So we're going to run this, and this is running on Windows. This is x64, Windows 11, nothing fancy or wild or anything, right? You'll notice our 26986 number is still there. So according to him, what happens on his machine, as soon as it gets to 900 or 800 or something, it bombs, which to me sounds like it's bombing when it hits the page difference. But see, it's fine. And in fact, it's not bombing. It's asking for him to re-authenticate. And re-authentication leads me to believe there's some sort of token or caching sort of issue here. Now, you'll notice we didn't sign in again either because I signed into this tenant yesterday on this machine. So that would lead me to believe that the token caching is working correctly here, right? So let's see, is there anything in here? I know it's really small and hard to see, so I don't expect you to look at that. So 817, no, this was modified today. That's OneDrive, though. We don't want that. Okay, so it doesn't look like it's there. It looks like it's in it should be in my user profile folder, however. So let's see, users, J. Dandison. It's lame. So here's Tenant Deleter. Tenant Deleter is, I believe, this should be our token cache. And bam, it is our token cache, which you cannot read, which is good. So that's our Tenant Deleter token cache, which is great. So we know we got a token cache here. That means that our other users should also have a similar token cache on our user's machine. So why would you be asked to re-authenticate? If we think about all the reasons that you may be asked to re-authenticate in Azure AD, token expires, conditional access not met, MFA requirement, network change, risky sign-in, all those sorts of rules that your administrator could subject you to. What else? I mean, really any number of conditional access rules. Network change. But this is a test tenant, and he has told me there is nothing. There's no PIM. There's no nothing. So then the other thing could be, normally you would see a re-authentication when you're requesting a new scope. So if you're requesting a scope that you haven't consented to yet, and that you need to be in scoped, live coding says, don't forget planning to delete millions of Azure AD entities. That could be a reason. And I'm not, what's funny about that is, actually it's a little warm. You can give me a second. I'm gonna open up my window because it's a little warm in here. I don't know why. Let's get this window. Oh man. So, there we go. All right. So anyway, what we've got is, for some reason, this user's being asked to re-authenticate. Re-authentications happen when the token's bad for one reason or the other. The token could be bad because you haven't consented. Perhaps you're not an administrator and you can't consent. Now, our users assured us that he is a general or a global admin, and there's no PIM. So if there's no PIM and he's not global, and he is a global admin, that shouldn't be any big issue there. Should be able to consent on behalf of the organization. No sweat, no problem. It's not a Windows issue, at least not a Windows 11 issue, because this is just just generic Windows box. There's nothing fancy about it at all. I named it HP Thang because that's what it is. It's just this HP. I don't even know if it has a name, right? So I don't know. The other thing would be things that are, I'd say, almost essentially outside of our control. Now, it could be security defaults. Let's go look at what those are by default. Let's see, Azure AD security defaults. Now, every new Azure AD tenant, if you don't use conditional access, this is a good point, Fuel. There's a high probability that what you're saying is correct as well, right? Now, this user is a fairly technical user, though, so I have confidence that what he's telling me is just true and correct. So security defaults is basically the default, hence the name security defaults. So if you're not using conditional access and making your own rules around when people have to MFA and under what reasons and whatever, if you're not doing that, then you're going to get security defaults sort of by default. It's going to make like MFA required. Everybody's going to have to register for it. So I wonder if there's something in here that is causing that it's triggering that to happen. Now, I said earlier, we talked about malicious multi-tenant apps. Now, there's something called publisher verification. Publisher verification means that if you, as a normal user, try to consent to if you as a normal user try to consent to a multi-tenanted app from an unverified publisher, you can't. The only person who can in your org is an administrator. Specifically to combat the sort of thing we looked at an hour ago, 30 minutes ago. So this user is global admin. He was using our multi-tenant app registration earlier, but he also tried it with an app registration in his own tenant, right? Oh boy, Fuel, where are we going? Fuel had a brilliant idea, he says. And he says, so Fuels had a brilliant idea. And that Doom runs everywhere. I'm waiting with bated breath to see where this is going to go. What if we could make a Doom runtime that runs code on the Doom engine? Then our code runs everywhere. Now, I think you're onto something. Here's why. What I think would be even more fascinating would be, what if we generated Doom levels and spawned monsters based on your Azure AD objects? So like if you've got a tenant that's got like 5 million users in it, and you want to delete them all, you have 5 million monsters that you have to go chase down, right? Conversely, now I guess the other thing is I don't know how I don't know how to spawn things in Doom. But yeah, I mean, if you looked at exactly like what live coding is saying, right? There are these weird 3D game visualization things for Kubernetes pods that do exactly that, right? You shoot the monster and it kills the pod. I mean, what if we took all cloud service administration down to its most primitive level, which is Doom? I mean, Doom is everything. It's everything that's ever... Anyway, I don't know. I think it'd be kind of a neat thing. You guys are stacking this stream with all sorts of neat new stuff that I want to go try. I'm never going to actually do my real job. I'm going to be out here trying to figure out how to write code for Doom. Okay. I do want to do this though. I'm actually super curious about how we could do this. Really curious about how we could do this. But if you died in Doom, does your account get deleted? I mean, maybe you get disabled. Or maybe getting killed is that's your conditional access re-authentication point. So if you get blasted in Doom, it's because you need to re-authenticate because your token's expired or because conditional access has blocked you. See, I almost feel like Minecraft would be a better analog here. Because you can mine blocks, meaning you could conjure users. You could make recipes of users. Now, I don't really know much about Minecraft, but my kids love it, and I play with them. So, granted, I don't think I want my 9-year-old having Azure AD global admin access in Minecraft. Who knows what he could do with that? Anyway, we're on to something, fellas. I'm going to put this in Discord, which all of you should join, by the way. So, to do, to do, build Azure AD Doom thing. Okay. So that way it's there. Be sure to join Discord. Actually, all of the children play Minecraft. 3, 6, and 4, 6, and 9. They all 3 love it. So, and they'll come in here after school today, which they get out of school early certain days of the week. They'll come in here, Daddy, are you ready to play Minecraft? No, it's 2 in the afternoon. I have to work the rest of the day. But yeah, the crafting table in Azure Minecraft. What if you could express ARM templates as Minecraft recipes? And Minecraft is super extensible. I mean, we could do that. I mean, somebody's probably already done that. So, I don't know. This channel today this chat is a bevy of just a fountain of amazing ideas. We're going to put these in the backlog. So, Minecraft crafting system might in fact be easier than Terraform. This is wholly correct. Fuel says we need to all believe in the Doom runtime, and I the thing is, the Doom runtime, Doom engine's all written in that's written in serious programming languages for adults. It's like assembly and C, and it's hyper optimized because all they had were 3K of RAM that they had to push uphill in the snow both ways and all that sort of stuff, right? I mean, okay. Doom engine. Was it id? It's called like id tech or something, right? Id tech 1. Okay. Doom engine source. But I guess what we really need to build is a WAD for Doom, right? Because every time somebody's like, oh, I made Doom run on my, refrigerator, or I made Doom run on my CPAP machine and things, I'm always like, man, I feel like such a lackluster coder. Because I haven't made Doom run on my, tire pressure monitoring sensor yet, and I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't even know how I would do that. But it is here on GitHub, I guess. But we wouldn't need to necessarily change the engine, right? We don't need to do that. We would just need to build. We would just need to build the. This is the. We would just need to build like a WAD file for it, right? I don't know. Anyway, we need to find someone who's done this before, because this is all C. Wow. Oh my goodness! Look at all that indentation. Now we can't even agree on tabs and spaces. And we have languages that get mad at you if you do it wrong. These people used to write this with slates and chisels. Anyway, yeah, 1997. December 23rd, 1997. Wow, that's amazing. Anyway, I don't know. Make your own Doom WAD. I feel like we're getting. Oh, okay. I'm going to read about this later. Now you've all gotten me excited to go figure out how I can navigate Azure AD, or just navigate. You can navigate your entire Microsoft estate. Like maybe the first episode of Doom is, Azure AD, and the second episode is like Office, and the third one is like Azure, right? And then the fourth one. And then the difficulty level, who's this creeping by my driveway? And then the difficulty level would be, I don't know what the difficulty level analog would be. What are these people doing? I don't like it when people get really close to my driveway and just hang out there. It's a little strange. Anyway, okay, sorry, I'm getting distracted. So security defaults. That's what we were talking about, right? Security defaults. All users have to register for Azure AD. Administrators have to do MFA. All users have to register for MFA. Users do multi-factor when necessary, which is incredibly ambiguous. Block legacy auth, that's an important one. Got that one. And protecting privileged activities. So that's also ambiguous. So let's start at the first ambiguous one, which is requiring users to do multi-factor when necessary. So stronger form of account verification, such as MFA for everyone, after user complete blah, 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 blah. Azure AD decides when a user will be prompted for multi-factor based location, device, role, and task. And I mean, it's certainly we are doing a task that is quite impactful, I'd say, but why am I not being constantly reprompted to authenticate? Right? Like, I'm also trying to delete tons of users very quickly. Legacy auth, that should be no big deal because we're using, this is all HTTP and it's a console app. We're talking to Graph. I mean, this is IMAP, SMTP, and POP. I don't have to worry about that. And then privileged activities like access to the Azure portal. Now, this doesn't, I mean, we're not using Azure here. We're using Graph, right? So I don't know why. Okay, so block less secure authentication. So security defaults, I don't think is really actually getting in the way. It couldn't be. I mean, I guess it's possible. So users have to register. Administrators have to do MFA. Okay. I wonder how old is this tenant? Because you get a grace window, like you get a grace period, right, in between when you start and when your account gets created, and when you actually have to register for MFA. So it's possible, maybe that's it. Because other than that, I mean, yeah, this is required to do extra authentication every time they sign in. But he does the device code login, which presumably is prompting for MFA, and then gets a token, and we've got offline access, so they're getting a refresh token, and that refresh token is going into the cache. So maybe what I'll have them do is we could have them look for the cache. We could have them see if the cache exists. We could have them check their account and see if they can sign in anywhere else. Like if they sign into the portal, if they get the prompt that says, hey, you haven't set up MFA yet, I wonder if that, I guess it's possible that could be blocking it because the MFA hasn't been set up yet, which means you cannot fulfill the MFA requirements, right? So I'm thinking maybe those are the top three, because at least as of right now, this seems to be working. Now, the other thing I was looking at, and this will be the last thing, I guess, because I just can't think of a reason why. I guess the other thing is I could ask this guy for an account, a global admin account in his tenant. We could just try to run it ourselves. But so the other thing is, yesterday I needed users in our tenant, right? So the thing is, like we were working on this PowerShell stuff yesterday. The thing is, you can import users, bulk import them, and you can bulk delete them. Problem with bulk deletion, however, is you need an Excel sheet or a CSV that has all of the UPNs of the users that you need to delete. Which getting that in itself can be a bit of a problem. So what I did was just create completely random ones, and these completely random ones go dump into a CSV, and then we go upload the CSV as a bulk uploader, right? So the first thing we want to do is we want to clear the content of our test. Actually, I don't think test is here anymore. So you would think, but apparently, from what I understand, and from I shouldn't say from what I understand, from what I've been told from folks who have tried, the export only does 50,000. Export, import, all the bulk operations are 50,000 items. 50,000 items. 50,000 items in a 3 million item tenant is what? 60 chunks of 50,000. Is that right? When it's that many zeros, my brain always gets twisted around. Azure 80 bulk operations, 50,000. Let's see. Bulk operations. Oops. CSV template, blah, 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 blah. I mean, we can certainly try. Let's create a file that's, oh yeah, each bulk activity create users can run for up to 1 hour. And it says, oh, okay, so maybe it's the 1 hour time limit. It's not necessarily the 50K users, but it's that at least 50K can fit into an hour. So anyway, so we did this. So this was like just yesterday, just to literally create like 40,000, whatever. So let's try to create like, I don't know, let's do 80,000, and we'll see. We'll go upload this and see if we can't get all these users in our tenant, and then we can start deleting them again. Because essentially, we want to be able to hit go and walk away, right? I don't think that'll take too long, but let's get to our browser where our other thing is. Here we go. So here is our browser. And if we come into Azure Active Directory, we've got users, and then here we'll have our bulk operations. So bulk operation, we'll do a bulk create, bulk invite, bulk delete. So let's do a bulk create. So now we're at 26027, so some of them have been continuing to get deleted as after we've left. But yeah, still not enough accounts to make it worth it. You are absolutely correct, NetSysAdmin J. So you download the CSV template. CSV template has a bunch of goop in it. And then you upload it. So are we finished here, or is this thing still cranking? Oh, and you know what? I need to get that. Let's go get that. Let's go pull up that CSV template. So there's one we did yesterday. I just need the top. So we'll go do that. Let's just get the top here. So we need version. So they just need this version V1 at the top, and then of course your typical. And then you need your typical. Oh, it's still building it, I guess. Oh, still going. Let's let Sublime maybe chill out for a sec. We'll wait until it's finished with its 80,000. But yeah, 80,000 still isn't anywhere near enough, right? Because we're talking about 3,000 some. Talking about 3,000 some users, so, or 3 million some users, so definitely not enough. So, 8 text messages is never something you want to see. So, oh, it's lunchtime. Somebody's going to go pick up lunch. Anyway, while I'm waiting on this, anybody got any good plans for the weekends? Anything fun going on this weekend? It's gotten a little chilly here, so I took the kids to school and I was wearing gym shorts and flip flops. And for starters, of course, people look at you weird because I don't think they wear those a lot around here. But also, it was a little brisk this morning. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a little breezy, a little chilly, which I'm kind of bummed out about. So, man, it's 80,000 seems to be taking a really long time. It's kind of lame. I didn't think it was gonna take this long. I did 40 yesterday in like next to no time at all. Anyway, so we'll take that, we'll go and we'll upload it. All it's really doing is it's just a GUID, right? So we're just putting a GUID after the user's display name and putting a GUID in their UPN just so that we can guarantee that they're unique, at least with relative confidence that they're going to always be unique. And when we do this upload, it creates these bulk operations. And when we go look at bulk operations, it'll just add one in here. So here's one we did. Here's one from yesterday. Now, 4,000 of these or whatever failed because they're unauthorized, specifically because the access token expired. So you kind of think like if 4,000 of 40,000 failed because the access token expired before the bulk activity finished, then presumably our 80,000 record file is almost certainly going to fail, which is now open, so that's good. Okay, so let's get this. We just got to put our headers into our file. Probably should have done that in the beginning, but whatever. So let's open test. Now it's 11 megs. Okay. Cool, we got that. I don't know what button you press to save things in this silly operating system, but okay. I'm gonna go upload these. Let's go do a bulk upload. And we'll get our, let's see, code, tenant deleter, test. Bam. Bueller, it's probably still open somewhere, and so it's gonna puke and complain. Okay, open. Or are we just not gonna work today? Azure portal. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Test. 11.4. I don't know why it doesn't want to work, but I'll just reload it, I guess. We'll reload the page. There we go. Anyway, so similarly with the bulk deletes, it's going to be the same thing, which is you're going to be able to delete as long as your access token's valid, which is roughly an hour. Now, that might actually be better than what the person I'm working with now. That might actually be better than the current situation, which is his access token seemed to expire after about 5 minutes. Apparently, I can't download. Do I have to download it before the upload button works? Like, what is this? Okay. Maybe I'm too impatient. I'm spoiled from the good internet I used to have, and this internet's slower and can't upload it fast enough. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of lame though. Like, why won't our file upload? We're not still writing to it, right? So our writing is done. So what's the problem? What's the problem, Bob? Well, whatever. Anyway, simple fact is, it's not uploading my file. I don't know why. It's like blinks like it's going to, and then it fails. So who knows? But anyway, I'll get this uploaded later. Where is Bob? You mean Bob like the guy I was talking about earlier? Or something different? My hacked internet antenna, no, it's still out there and it's still on a pole. But, BSD guy, I've been talking to these folks about coming out and building me a tower, like a proper 66-foot tower, and we're gonna put the antennas at the top of that. So I got to talk to him again, because the thing is like, it's not a super cheap endeavor, but more than anything, the cables, like the cable that goes from the antenna to the device, if we're probably going to be about 45 to 50 feet above the roof, I'm probably going to need 60 to 70 feet of cable, and so I need super low loss stuff. And because like if you get a plus 11 dB gain, but you're losing 12 dB across the thing, right? Then like, what's the point? Now you're in a worse situation. But then it's like, those cables, they're expensive. Like, it's pretty serious cash for I mean, just for cables, which I mean, I get it. Like, good cables are expensive, but the cables to go from the antenna to the thing, right? Like LMR 400, LMR 600, like low loss cables, they're just super, super expensive. So let's see. Callaway asks if it's the pie hole. I don't know why it would be, because I did this yesterday and it was fine. So I guess, I don't know why it's spinning. Let's let the spin finish. Okay, it's finished spinning. Open. Yeah, I don't know what it's doing. It's weird. Because we've refreshed the page, we got tokens, like everything seems fine. I don't know why it would bomb like that. But I'm also not in a position to go and debug the Azure portal today, so I'm not really gonna worry about that too much. So I'll try one more time. Upload test.csv. Maybe it's too big. I bet it's too big because it's 10 megs. I'm almost certain that's what it is. Let's do it again. Clear, was it clear content? You know what, I just test.csv. What's the equivalent of, let's just do this. Oops. Test.csv. Let's put our stuff in here. Oh my goodness, what has happened? I need my headers again. Get my headers and my version thing. And since we're already in Sublime, we'll just do that. Those are in the CSV that we downloaded, user create template. We'll open that here with Sublime 2. We need this, we'll take that, get this in here, and then we'll just append from the other one. Okay, so let's get that closed. And now instead of doing 40,000, or instead of 80,000, I'll just do like, I don't know, we'll just do 30,000. Won't take as long anyway. Net sysadmin. So I have looked, so what I've done, I'll show you what's going on here. So what I've done is created, put myself to a little bit of a pickle in that I have T-Mobile home internet because where we live, we can't get it. The only other option is Frontier DSL, which is best effort 10 megabit, which means we would not be doing this right now because the upstream's like best effort 1 megabit. So we have T-Mobile home internet. There's a tower 1.4 miles away from us, and I'm sorry for all of you that have heard this story so far, but there's a tower 1.4 miles away from us. We have line of sight at about 60 feet away, from about 60 feet up. In a certain part in our yard, we have line of sight from 30 feet up, and so this is my current solution, which is the modem is The modem is zip tied to a Ziploc bag on top of 3 lengths of 10-foot conduit. So this thing's in the air right now. What I've ended up purchasing, however, to remedy this, is a set of they're waveform antennas, I think. Waveform log periodic antennas. Let's see, the 4x4. Where are the 4x4s? So I've ordered these. So they're 4 MIMOs or whatever they're called. So I've got these, and they're currently awaited. They need to be mounted. So these 4 have to be mounted like a specific thing, and these, they need to be mounted somewhere, preferably somewhere that has line of sight. And so in order to get line of sight on a tower, at the place where the thing is now, it's 30, 35 feet in the air. Problem is, they won't build a tower that tall that's freestanding. The freestanding tower is 65 feet tall, and to like $10,000. If they're going to build a shorter tower, it has to be bracketed to the side of a building, like the house. We've got like the shed pole barn thing in the back. The problem is there, I need to be 65 feet in the air. So I think what we're going to end up doing is putting a 65-foot tower on the side of the pole barn, put these antennas on top, but then I need to get 50, 55 feet down to the roof, and then another 10 or 15 feet inside the building to hook up the antennas to the modem, and that's the difficulty. That's where the cable question starts to come in. It's like, well, how much loss are we going to have across these cables? So, I don't know. And then the other thing is, like, there are lots of people building fiber in our county, so part of me is like, they really want to go spend all this money and time and effort and energy just to have somebody come and dig us a fiber line, like, in 6 months. Or do I just deal with what I got right now? I don't think it's going to survive the winter. So, what are my speeds now? So, I don't know if you all remember, but we did this little experiment. Oh, good, our file's done. Let me go get this file upload started, and then we'll come back to this. So, now our thing is only 4.3 megs. Almost certain it's going to upload now. It's fine. It's a size problem. Instead of telling us it's a size problem, it's just like, ooh. Okay, so that's doing its thing. And if we look at our bulk operation results, we'll see it's not completed, obviously, so it's going to get started. So current speeds right now are pretty good. It's going to get a little dicey here for a moment. So selection details, they're pretty good. That's not very good. That's actually super slow compared to what we're usually getting. Okay, that's a little bit better. So what we've been getting is generally 600 to 650 during the day. So, and about 100 up. Now, it's also possible, I'm not going to run this one very long. I'm not going to run the upload one very long. So it's 350 by 40. It's not too bad. Typically, we get 650 down, and we can get up to 100 up normally. Usually, we get like 80 to 90 up. So the cell booster isn't really like, it isn't necessarily a matter of signal in the house and in the pole barn. Of course, the pole barn's all aluminum siding, so anything in there, the service just gets absolutely decimated. In the house, there are enough trees and enough like the windows have some like coating on them and whatever, that in the house it's kind of difficult to get a decent thing, like to get decent numbers. And so because it isn't necessarily a matter of like right now the big issue is just that to get good signal, I've got to be out in the yard. And see, that's the other thing I've noticed in the last few days. I know it's really hard to see because for whatever reason you can run iOS apps on Mac, but you can't zoom them in, which makes it. Maybe you can zoom it in, but only one or the other. But so like it's on N71 right now, which is slow, like the slower but like better thing. Usually we're on N41, which is much faster. But the thing I've noticed for the last like week is every day about 10:30, 10:45, it just completely dies, and I've had to reboot it. except for today, which seems like it switched to N71 maybe as a way to figure it out. But the N41 is since it's higher frequencies, 2.5 gigahertz, leaves and stuff get in the way. And so being up in the air with a clear line of sight to the tower gives us the best opportunity to get the high 650, 700, maybe even faster. I mean, it has a theoretical max of 2.5 and the 2.5 gigabits in the 2.5 gigahertz spectrum. It's possible we could get much, much faster. And the other thing I'm thinking is by building this tower, since I'll have good line of sight all the way around the, sort of the perimeter of the property, is presumably as cellular things improve and they get better, we will, we'll be sort of set up to running new antennas for different things. So, it's definitely serviceable, but I've had fiber now for almost a decade, and I got really spoiled because we had AT&T fiber, and then we moved to our new place, and we had fiber there, and now we moved here, and it's like, it's definitely not bad. Don't get me wrong. Where my in-laws live, which is only an hour away, they get 10 by 1 cellular because it's all that's available where they are because it's rural, right? So yeah, I mean, there's a guy on YouTube actually called Nader Tater, great name, who lives somewhere in Michigan, actually, like me, who I've learned all this stuff from. He like shows people how to crack open their modems and like wire antennas, and he tests like everything under the sun. So he's got a great YouTube channel for learning this stuff. So big fan. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely serviceable and definitely like we've been getting great signal once we were outside, but like our received quality was always generally fairly decent. But like when the modem was inside, for example, our received power was under 100 decibels. It was 104, 105 negative 104 or negative 105. So it's kind of being out there where we're getting 60s and 70s. The speed difference is tremendous because they apparently they carrier aggregate quite a bit, so they'll bond a bunch of those channels together. So you'll get this massive, like 80 megahertz wide or 160 megahertz wide pathway to the tower, and you can just pump a bunch more data through it. So I will say though, like, because I'm in my mid 30s, I remember getting cell phones. It was like a gig, like that was your, cell phone plan years and years and years ago, right? Was you'd get you do a gig, you'd get like a gigabyte of data, and it would cost you like $40 a month for a data plan with that on it. And the other day, I looked at our T-Mobile account from last month, and it was like, oh, you used 1.2 terabytes of data or something. It's like, oh my god, like. That would have bankrupted you 5 or 10 years ago. So, I mean, it's kind of cool. Don't get me wrong. It's just, I don't know. I'm a fan of, if it doesn't move, it should be wired. But I'm old, and that might be why I believe that. So, anyway, we got our things uploaded, so that's good. I got my users there. I'm going to go run this app one more time while we're sitting here, just to kind of get an idea of, like, how we're working. So let's see. We'll do a .NET run, blah, 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 blah. And I think really, no, T-Mobile doesn't throttle you, so they will not throttle you. But you're deprioritized. So home internet is deprioritized under everything else. Now, where I live, there aren't that many people. It is near I-94, but there just aren't that many people here. And so I have a feeling I'm probably one of the few people on our tower right here. Most of the people on the tower are driving on the interstate by. So I just don't think there are a ton of folks around because, like, our neighbor, I tried to talk to him about it, and he had no interest. He's like, nah, I got, like, the DSL. He's like, that's enough for me. I'm like, okay. Like, he had no interest in it, so I don't think he would get it anyway. So, and then, the lightning issue, Trooper. Yeah, in fact, I have a video. There's a whole new type of anxiety that I've learned all about, which is when you have a 30 or 40 foot pole up in the sky and it's raining and hailing outside. So here, let me show you this video here. I think in fact, we probably looked at this a few weeks ago. So, yeah, it was hailing and lightning and everything else. And that thing's out there. There it is. And it was terrifying. I was like, this thing's going to get struck by lightning, almost guaranteed. Like, this is going to end right now. My internet's going to be over. I'm going to have to pay for a new modem. They're going to get all upset about it. Like, I was convinced. But magically, somehow, it survived. And it fought on to live another day. So my redneck zip-tied Ziploc gallon bag weatherproofing has worked out quite well. So, yeah. We do have a pond. Yeah, there's a pond back there, which is simultaneously fun and terrifying with a 4-year-old who doesn't listen to anything. You're like, hey, don't do that. And he laughs harder as he does it more. You're like, what are you doing? So, luckily it's gotten cooler here, and so there won't be that many storms left. So, but I gotta get the tower guys out here. It's really the net. It's really just the net result. So, okay, we've queued up 13,000 of these. We've made over 700 batch submissions through the graph, and we still haven't had any sort of re-authentications. So I'm feeling fairly confident that it's either a machine config issue with my other guy or a tenant configuration issue. So I think what I'm going to do, maybe I'll just ask him if I can be a global admin. So, the thing about the people being dependable, holding ladders. Let me tell you someone who's not dependable, and not because they're maliciously not dependable, but because they're 9 years old. It's 9-year-olds. But fortunately for me, the tower people have like certified climbers, and these people, like, they're all like, they've got all the rigging and the gear, and they hook on and they climb up. And I used to work for a construction company. I didn't do construction, I did like software, but falls were like the leading cause of injury, because people fall off stuff all the time, because humans are kind of made to be on the ground. And when you challenge that, eventually something's going to happen, you're going to fall. And so, like, the importance of clipping in and clipping out and everything was super, super important, because if you didn't do that and you fell, falling, you die, you get screwed up, like you are permanently injured, something, bad stuff happens. So, I don't like to climb things. I've always been scared of heights. So I don't like to climb things anyway. And so if we have to pay folks to go climb a tower, I'm going to let them climb the tower. And then somebody asked earlier about Bob, the guy I used to work with. Bob is still doing software. So that's cool. He's still doing software back in Charlotte, I think. I haven't seen him in a long time, but yeah, last I heard he was still writing code. So anyway, we have deleted, and look how interesting, some of our new ones are already in there. So we've deleted nearly our entire new chunk of tenancy, or chunk of users in our tenant in just under 5 minutes, which is really good. I'm very, very pleased about that. So let's see. Oh, BSD guy, 120-foot ham radio tower. Ham radio would be kind of fun, I think. I've thought about doing that. Sometimes I'll take the little like two-way radios we've got and turn them on, and I remember there's this one group of guys, and they'd get up together and they just talk, like every Thursday morning or something. They just get together and talk, and over the radio, and of course we'd listen in because it was funny, and my youngest would take it and be like, ha ha, poops, and then he would run away. But I mean, is it really that different than what we're doing right now, which is we get together on Thursday mornings and we laugh and talk about things? I don't really know. So, okay, now, this is almost done. I'm going to see what happens when it finishes. Maybe when it finishes it bombs, but it's been running for 5 minutes. We haven't been asked to re-authenticate. The pagination is still working, so it's good. So, I mean, no, we're also asking Azure AD to bulk import 30 or 40,000 on top of this, so who knows what our actual count will be. But I mean, I feel like that's I feel like this gives us the best opportunity to do things in a quick and automated way. Given what we have to work with, which is a fairly stringently monitored and rate limited graph API, like I don't think CPU or memory or disk is one of the things that's getting in the way here. This is purely an API throughput question, and the API throughput on graph, especially because there are lots of different limits, but some of them are at the tenant level, some of them are at the app level, and some of them, like if you're doing a multi-tenanted app, and these are all things we can talk about one day, but if you're doing things like multi-tenanted apps, you may find that your application has rate limits on it. Oh, it blew up. Oh, this is an interesting one. Why did we get a forbidden? Because a forbidden is not a 401. Insufficient privileges. Oh, you know why? I bet because we finished our users and we moved on to applications. Yeah, there we are. Delete all applications from the tenant, and we've never requested that permission to do that, so that's why. So we deleted all of our users. Obviously, there's still a bunch that are getting loaded in this bulk operation. It says it's processing and that none of them have been successful. This says there are 37,000 users still in here. So this is eventual consistency, I guess, in the flesh. And in fact, if we were to go run this again, chances are, I think we'd probably still see quite a few of those users still sort of showing up in there. Yeah, it still says there are 37,000 in there. So eventual consistency will take care of those. So anyway, I'm going to get out of here. You guys are trying to enjoy the rest of your weekend. Next Thursday, we've got a hacker coming to hack some stuff with us. We have, outside of our new Doom project, because clearly that's going to be one of the highest priorities. Actually, you know what? This gets me thinking. Three things before I go. First, go join Discord. Somebody can do the bang Discord in the chat. That would be super helpful. Go join the Discord. Secondly, if you're using ADFS, please tell us why you're using ADFS. Please, you can email us 45show at Discord, or 45show at Microsoft.com. You can obviously tell us in the Discord. We're going to have lots and lots of resources to help you migrate off of Azure, or migrate off of ADFS for authentication and for apps over the next 12 months. But if you're still using ADFS, we would love to understand why. We'd love to learn more about things that may be keeping you on ADFS, etc. And maybe that's a good opportunity for our Doom thing, is every time you turn off an ADFS server, you can go into, you get a new monster or something added to Doom. I don't know. So make sure you join Discord. Make sure if you've got any ADFS running, that you start thinking about how to turn that off. Should we go over to Clark? I don't think we've seen Clark in a long time. Should we go over to Mr. Clark? Clark.io, Clark.io. I think we should let's get raid Clark. So anyway, we'll be back next Thursday, same bat time, same bat channel. We'll have a hacker with us. We're going to do some Azure stuff, some ARM, Azure, ADFS, Connect Health templating stuff, some DSC. We will try to come back and do another one of these sort of out-of-band ones so that we can start looking at our PlayStation, our PowerShell provider we started on yesterday. We definitely need to work on that. I feel like that's going to be a super awesome tool. And in some ways, that may be the precursor to what the Doom engine looks like. So anyway, come back and see us next week. Until then, have a great weekend. You can find me on Twitter at Azure and Chill, because I've gone back to my old username. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Let's go raid Mr. Clark, if my mouse would actually work correctly. And let's get going. So until then, or until we meet again, friends, I'll see you soon. Peace.